Hello again. As I'm sure most viewers know, the official inquiry into grooming gangs has already run into quite a few difficulties before it has even begun. All victims of these gangs have resigned from the panel of victims, people supposed to be giving evidence and to be part of the whole process, because they believe that a whitewash is being mounted. They are, of course, absolutely right. Let me explain why and also how this particular trick is going to be worked. Grooming gangs, like mugging, have no legal definition. There's no criminal offence called mugging, for example. And the same thing applies to these gangs. The official definition of this kind of thing, the one used by the police, is so broad as to make it literally impossible to identify the grooming gangs and distinguish them from any other offence. They are all lumped together and known as group-based child sexual abuse and exploitation. Now, this covers an awful lot more than the kind of thing which most of us think of course, when we're talking about the gangs who engage in this kind of dreadful business. For example, here is a definition used by the police of a group in this context, which is that a group is two or more people of any age connected through formal or informal associations or networks, including but not exclusive to friendship group. This means that when we look into the problem of such abuse, two 10-year-old boys who persuade a classmate to play doctors and nurses in the primary school are lumped in together with, say, six middle-aged taxi drivers who are plying teenage girls with alcohol and then taking them to hotels or each other's houses. See the problem there? How are you going to work out who are members of actual grooming gangs in the sense that we all understand the term? In the description to this video, I give a link to the National Police Chiefs Council analysis of statistics relating to offences of this kind, and it is impossible to filter out actual gangs from the mass of statistics. For instance, we read that where recorded, just over half of child sexual abuse and exploitation cases, 52%, involve reports of children aged 10 to 17 offending against other children, with 14 being the most common age. Well, most of us don't really mean 14-year-olds when we talk about grooming gangs, do we? Then, too, in the same document, we read that CSAE within the family environment remains a common context for the abuse of children, accounting for almost a third of reported CSAE crime. And this is not what most of us are thinking about either. By the way, when you hear somebody claim that white people commit far more abuse of this kind than other ethnicities, this is the reason. The police put in all those offences committed by children and add them to the figures, and many of those kids are indeed white. This is one of the reasons that those four victims have resigned from having anything to do with the inquiry before it has even begun, because they say that most of the supposed victims of this kind of offence are nothing to do with gangs at all. They say that the panel has been packed out with people that have been abused within a family setting or were children abused by other children. The inquiry is intended to dispose of the idea that this problem is anything to do with Pakistani Muslims, and so the plan is to shove as many victims into the mix as possible who are not victims of Pakistani Muslims, so that it can later be claimed that such cases represent a tiny minority of such abuse and exploitation. This is, of course, always assuming that the thing happens at all. There is great difficulty in finding anybody who will agree to head the enterprise, as that particular post is likely to be something of a poisoned chalice. I think it fair to say that even if this thing actually gets off the ground, you won't see much mention of Pakistani Muslims in the final report. which probably won't appear for some years yet anyway.